I couldn't begin to enumerate to you the times when things have happened in life which you could attribute to coincidence, if you wished, but where the improbability grows vast. Would you like me to tell you about one of them? I very rarely do this. But I will, because, as you know, I have been a lot to Russia. How did I come to go to Russia? Well, I'll tell you. I was at a conference of mathematical cryptographers. You all depend on them, so don't laugh. If you ever use an ATM, you've got a mathematical cryptographer right inside the box collecting the money. And it was in Belgium, and we finished the conference, and the bus driver lost his way to the station, and we missed the train. So there were 50 very angry mathematicians standing on the platform in Belgium. And in the end, we got on the train, and I was going to Cologne, and it was late at night, and I was a bit concerned. I had a heavy suitcase, and in those days, Cologne station wasn't the best place to be found after midnight. So I found myself in a compartment with a German, a Belgian, and 2 Russians. And I sat beside the Russian, and I started to talk to him, and he was rather surprised that I could speak a bit of his language. And I said, "What do you do?" And he said, "I'm an ecologist." Oh, I said, "The ecologist? Do they have those in Russia?" And he said, "Yes, and this is the first time I've been out in the West. I come from Lake Baikal." So I said, "Can you openly talk about ecology in Russia?" He said, "Well, you know, we can say a bit." And then I said to him, "Are there other things that you can talk about openly that were taboo earlier?" He said, "Like what?" I said, "Like God, for example." And he said, "Yes, we can talk about God." In that moment, the thought came into my head, I've got to give this man a Bible. It's a curious thought to get in a train going through Belgium in the middle of the night. And I kept talking to him. I couldn't get it out of my head. And in the end, the thought grew so strong, I thought, this is crazy. I mean, where do you get a Bible from in the middle of the night in a train going through Belgium? And then I had another thought. I thought, I wonder if it's still there. 3 weeks before that, I'd been in Germany with a publisher. Sitting on his desk was a Russian Bible. And I said, "That's a nice Bible." He said, "Do you want it?" "I can't read it." I said, "I love it. Mine is pretty old and I'd like that." So I put it in my suitcase. I wonder, is it still there? So while I was still talking to this chap, I got up, put my hand into the suitcase, and the Bible was still there. So I brought it out and I handed it to him. He went as white as a sheet. He couldn't speak. And I thought he was going to have a heart attack. I said, "What's wrong with you?" He said, "Nothing." And then he said, "Как вы узнали это?" "How did you know this?" I said, "What do you mean, how did I know this?" He said, "How did you know that 6 weeks ago the only Bible we've ever seen was stolen in Irkutsk in Siberia? And we've just got an opportunity to come to the West. In 4 hours' time we're taking the plane to Moscow. How did you know?" I said, "Do you believe this book?" He said, "I don't know." But he said, "Look in the corner. That's my wife. She believes it." And I turned. I'll never forget it. To see this young woman with her face glowing, the tears streaming down her face as she clutched the Bible. And she said, "Is that really for me? Are you really giving it to me?" I said, "Of course." And they were gone in the night. And the German girl said to me, she said, "Does that often happen to you?" I said, "No, it doesn't." But I said, "You shouldn't think it's strange." She said, "Why not?" Well, I said, "Look, this person comes from a country where they've been systematically denied access to this book. If this really is the Word of God, he could use me as a postman as much as anybody else." Well, then she said, "I'd better read it." So she did. And we carried on a correspondence. Now, what do you make of a story like that? To me, I got home, told my wife. She said, let me see your diary. She did something she's never done in her life before, or since. She said, clear your diary for at least 2 months. I said, pardon? She said, you're going to Russia. I said, complete. She said, how would you go to Russia? Well, I said, it's a very complicated business. You've got to ring the Royal Society, fill in endless forms and so on. She said, bring them. Well, I said, perhaps next week, right now. So Muggins does what he's told. And the man at the end says, Professor Lennox, you want to go to Russia? When can you go? How long can you go for? We want the Russian mathematicians out. It's a week for a week. Can you go for a month? I said, my wife says 2. He said, done, no forms. You get the money. You can leave tomorrow if you want. When I got to Russia, ladies and gentlemen, middle of the Academy of Sciences, all they wanted to know was, how could a person like me believe in God?